We ask our producers to have 4 new conversations a day. The way we define a conversation is, Andy, if I get on the phone with you, spend 10 minutes with you or more, you're a new prospect that I haven't talked to for at least 30 days, and we go over home and auto insurance, that's 1 new conversation. I need to have 80 conversations for the month.
Got questions, we bring the facts. From proven pros who walk the tracks. Business life, no smoke, just flames. Ask the experts, David Williams brings the game.
All right, welcome everybody. We are back. It is 10:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, and it is that day of the week, Thursday, for another episode of Ask the Experts. And I'm incredibly excited for our guest today that needs no introduction. Most of you know him, but he deserves one nonetheless, a very big one. So today, I'm truly excited. We got somebody that's been changing the game in the insurance industry and helping others do the same. Our guest today is Vlad Cherchenko. Many of you already know him. If you don't, get ready to take some notes. He started his journey at State Farm 11 years ago, and now it's his 3rd year at Farmers, where he's built nothing short of incredible. He leads a powerhouse team of 20 sales agents, 7 service reps, 5 SDRs, 3 team leads, and he hit a record P&C production of 1.4 million in a single month. That wasn't a year. That was 1.4 million in premium in a single month. He is also the founder of the Insurance Sales Lab, where he's taking the magic sauce that he's built with his team, and he's bringing that to agencies across the country to help him scale. And it doesn't stop there. He is a amazing husband, family man, and just honored to have on the show. Vlad, welcome to have you on the show, my friend.
Thank you, David. Appreciate it. Andy, thank you for the invite. Happy to be
Absolutely.
here.
Yeah, maybe, what we'll start with is, I know a lot of people know who you are, but they don't know how you got started. And I like to ask everybody on the beginning of the show, what was your, we live in the greatest country on earth, the country of the American dream. What was your American dream story that got you started?
Yeah. Well, I immigrated here with my parents when I was 2 months old. It was my parents moving from Kazakhstan with my 2 siblings. I have an older brother, Mike, sister, me. The 3 of us immigrated here. I was a baby. And when we arrived here, parents didn't speak English. Dad was doing construction work, and he's an electrician now. But I grew up knowing that trade is not what I wanted to do. A lot of people in my culture, in my church, my community, a lot of them do that line of work. At least that was the case many, many years ago. That's what you had to do when you were an immigrant. But there's always this desire to have my own business from an early age that I had no idea what business that would be. Age 16, when I was a sophomore, I got a job at Best Buy. I was the only kid at that time who had one of like a real job that wasn't
parallel right there. I was Circuit City.
Yeah, I do remember. Yep. You and I both share that background. And as you know, in that kind of world, it's not just about sales. There's also so many metrics, KPIs that get shared by the hour of how each department is doing, how the store is doing, how your store is doing compared to the other stores in the district. And that's where I really fell in love with this idea of tracking KPIs. It's not just about selling more. There's a formula there. You want to sell a good mix of certain products. And I did that for 6 or 7 years. And then when it was time for me to make a career move, I was looking at different opportunities. I wanted it to be either a real estate agent, loan officer, or an insurance agent. With the first 2, they seem really promising. You make a lot of money when you sell a home, when you close on a mortgage, but you have to work for that next paycheck every time you want to get paid. You have to work for the next deal, which is fine when you're young, when you're starting off. But looking ahead 10, 20 years from now, knowing how real estate agents are always working over the weekends, loan officers, they have pretty intense hours. I wanted to have a business where it did not depend on me showing up for me to make an income. And the only thing that I could see that was possible at that time was insurance. Talked to a few insurance agents. They showed me how much money they were making, and it wasn't anything astronomical, but they were paying themselves $15,000, $20,000 a month. They had an office manager in place who was managing the sales team, service team. And I thought, this is the kind of life that I want to have. So I got recruited by State Farm initially, and the goal was to go through an 18-month program and then graduate, open up an agency. But the path took a different direction where I developed a sales process really for myself that worked exceptionally well. I started teaching it to other agents and team members. That became a business, became a very fruitful business. And I had to make a decision of either becoming an agent or going all in on this business, because with State Farm, they gave me no choice. They said, if you want to be an agent with us, you have to give up the consulting business, even if that means you're only working with State Farm agents. So I left State Farm and went all in on training. I started working with farmers agents, Allstate agents, independent agents, really anybody who sold P&C insurance. And I've been doing that ever since. 4 years ago, I started doing research on what company I want to open up an agency with, because that was always the dream. That was always the goal, is to have my own agency. And I decided to go with farmers, moved my family, my wife, 2 kids at that time. Now we have 3, moved all the way to Dallas. And now 3 years later, we have the fastest growing agency in the nation. And that was by design. From the very beginning, we wanted to get to a point where we're doing $1 million in premium per month. I thought it was going to happen in the first year. I thought if I bring on 2 people a month, by the end of the first year, we'll have 20, 24 people. They're going to write 40,000 premium-ish. That'll get us to $1 million in premium, but it took much more time than that. But now we're at a point where it's more of a repeatable number that we're doing consistently month in, month out. So that's the short version of what led to today.
Well, I love that. Well, that's a very inspiring story, and nothing short of amazing. And I know it, it doesn't always start out like you're saying there, where you're writing that 1.4 million in premium in a month, like your first month. So I'd be curious, what did it look like in the very beginning, and what were some of the lessons maybe you had to learn the hard way that got you to the place where you are now, likely going from working in the business to now working on the business the way you are?
Yeah. Well, one thing I'll say is I was always working on the business. I was never, once I opened up the agency, I've never talked to a internet lead. I never talked to a prospect, never really talked to a client. I might have talked to 2 or 3 clients just because it was an escalation and I wanted to help my team out. But that was in the first year. So from the very beginning through now, the goal was always to work on the business. And I would say the biggest mistakes I made in the first year are the same mistakes that agents make forever and ever. And that is that I thought if I hire good people and I give them good sales training, I give them a good CRM, then they should be able to, and if I buy them leads, they should be able to figure things out. They'll be able to close a deal a day. A deal a day gets them to 40, 50,000 in premium per producer. And I thought when I was a producer, I didn't have any leads given to me. I had to call old leads and develop interest and close the deal, ask for referrals. And yet I was doing more than a deal a day. And if I give my producers training, the script that I'm using, and I'm giving them leads, and we have a really good culture, what could go wrong? I did go into the industry here in Texas during one of the roughest times in the last 15 years, where there's a lot of non-renewals, rate increases. I mean, everybody was hit hard, but that was not the reason we weren't doing well. Even though there was a lot of underwriting restrictions that were seen for the last 15 years that were coming up, that was not the reason why we weren't doing well. The reason we weren't doing well initially, and I only learned this over time, is that we were not focusing on the right KPIs. We were asking our team members to have more talk time, have more calls, more quotes. And I realized that all those stats can easily be gamed, and a team member can easily make 100 calls and say, well, you asked for 100 calls, I got 100 calls.
Yep.
They can do 3 hours of talk time and say, well, you asked for 3 hours of talk time, I got 3 hours of talk time. But the sales were not occurring. So we now track something completely different. And I can talk about that right now. So one big difference now compared to then was what we were tracking, what we were measuring, and that made a massive difference. And the other thing is, even though our team was like 6, 7 people at that time, I still wanted to be a team lead, but I was a terrible team lead because I wasn't with them full time. I was doing interviews. I was doing calls like this. I was doing a lot of the owner stuff, and my team only saw me for maybe 25% of the time. And what I now realize is that for a sales organization to flourish and to get the most out of them, you need a full-time head coach with them present at all times. When you watch an NBA finals game, an NBA playoffs game, whatever game you watch, the coach is on the sideline providing feedback in the moments. He can see what's happening that the players might not see, and the corrections are made in the moments. And that's the kind of relationship that we have with our team leads. They're not sales managers. We don't use that word intentionally. They're team leads. And they look at themselves as head coaches, where we have a team of 20 sales agents. Each team lead has about 10 producers assigned to them. And what they're doing is they're listening to conversations and seeing, okay, I can step in and help out a producer here. I can help with underwriting issue here. So they're doing that full time. So as I'm talking to you guys right now, we have 20 sales agents out there, 2 sales team leads who are all working together. And in the past, in the first year, if somebody had a question for me, they'd have to wait for me to come out for me to support them. And that's no longer the case. So the speed at which we can operate at right now is completely different now compared to the first year. And finally, going back to the KPIs, I would say that the 3 things that we look at more than anything right now is, we call it our 3 daily fundamentals. This is our blueprint for success. We ask our producers to have 4 new conversations a day. The way we define a conversation is, Andy, if I get on the phone with you, spend 10 minutes with you or more, you're a new prospect that I haven't talked to for at least 30 days, and we go over home and auto insurance, that's 1 new conversation. I need to have 80 conversations for the month. 20 business days, that's about 4 a day. And so that's the first fundamental. The second fundamental is, when I'm having those new conversations, I need to be using our script. We have our script, the 6-step script to the 1 call close. This is the script that we should be using, because this has the highest probability. If you use this gives you the highest probability of you closing the sale in the first call or through a follow-up. And also, it won't be a monoline deal. It'll be a multi-line deal. So that's the second fundamental. Don't invent your own process. Use the process that we have. Yep. And the third fundamental is, on the deals that you don't close, you quote someone, the prospect shows interest, and you need to follow up with them. The third fundamental is, with those leads, follow up with them via call, text, and email for 5 days. And we have ways that we measure that. And every day when our team members show up for our morning huddle, every day at 8 o'clock, this is what we just did an hour ago. At 8 o'clock, everybody went around the circle and they shared what they did yesterday. So they speak on the fundamentals and they set a goal for the current day. And we also do that during our midday at 1 o'clock. As soon as everybody comes back from lunch at 1 o'clock sharp, for about 5 minutes, everybody gives a quick progress update on the 3 fundamentals. So with most agencies, it'll take weeks or months for an agency owner to sit down with the producer to go over their numbers. Whereas with our agency, we do that twice a day. And that constant conversation about fewer things. We don't talk about calls. We don't talk about talk time. We don't talk about quotes. We just focus on these 3 fundamentals. And by doing so, we're able to keep a consistent message in line with our team members. And that's produced incredible results. Last month, we finished, as you said, 1.4 million in premium. 5 of our producers did over 100,000 in premium. And our average premium per producer was 70,000 in premium. And this is not an easy market to be doing new business. And granted, we are licensed in a few states. It's not just Texas that we're writing new business in, but that's the big difference between then and now. In the first year, it was just about doing what everybody else is doing, buying leads, doing our best job with calling them. But now we focus on the 3 KPIs, and we have a full-time team lead. And final thing I'll say, and whatever follow-up questions you have, I'm happy to answer. But I know you guys are big proponents of Ricochet. You're part of Ricochet. I don't know to what degree, but that was also a big thing that we changed at the end of our first year. Is we went from round robin lead distribution, which is terrible in so many ways. It seems like it's fair.
Using the Shark Tank method now?
Yeah, we now use Shark Tank. Round robin seems like a fair way to distribute leads, but there's so many flaws with that. But by going to the Shark Tank lead distribution method, we can get to the leads much faster than our competition. So it's a culmination of those three things that has really changed the game for us. So
no, I love that. And I love what you did is like you realize, hey, there was maybe different set of metrics that was outside of the normal, against the grain of what everybody else is doing. And it's getting you a result like most people aren't getting, right? I think that's incredible. Now, when you're working with your team on a day-to-day basis and bringing in, let's say, a new sales member to the team, what are you looking for in terms of that new sales member to make sure that, because I mean, you have a well-oiled machine that's running a certain way. It's incredibly impressive. So what are you looking for in that right individual when they come aboard? And I'd say the follow-up to that is, what does that onboarding look like to, I guess, set them up for success?
Yeah. So my answer today is very different than it would have been 2-3 years ago when we started. And I will say that by looking at our 20 producers that we have now and those that we've had in the past, the ones who can come in and do really well in the very beginning are those with at least some past sales experience, not insurance experience, but sales experience. We do have a couple of people who are doing exceptionally well now. This is a year after we brought them on, but during the first year, they struggled. They were learning the basics of sales, even though we gave them a script, we do sales training, but because they've never really sold anything, it took them a while to really get up to speed. So if I want somebody to come in and kill it from day one, I'm looking for someone who has sales experience. And the way that I look into that is I asked during the interview, Andy, on a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate your sales ability? They give me a number. I ask why. Okay. And then I ask, so you said a 7 out of 10. Imagine I'm brand new to sales and I've never sold anything before and you're the experts. Doesn't matter what industry I'm in. We have 2 minutes with each other. I come to you and I say, Andy, give me some advice on what will help me in my sales career. Give me a 2-minute lesson on sales. And then I just want to see what they say. And then I say, okay, now I'm just like you. I'm a 7 out of 10. I'm an expert. Speak to me as though I'm an expert. Give me a 2-minute lesson on sales. And then there's a lot of ways that you can, a lot of things you'll learn about the candidate at that time. Do they really understand sales or not? How do they communicate? How do they think on their feet? And that allows us to narrow that pool of people that we're talking to and only bring on people who have sales experience. So that's one component of it. I prefer to have people with sales experience. And then the other part is we have our 7 core values. And if I feel like someone will not exemplify these values when they're on the team, we don't bring them on board. The funnel that we have is about 1,000 candidates to 1 hired is what our funnel looks like. 1,000 people apply on Indeed, of which we might do 50 to 100 phone screens. Of those, we'll meet half of those in person for an in-person interview. Of those, less than half make it to a final interview. And then from those, less than half get hired. So it's a really difficult hire here to be onboarded. So when we hire somebody, we want to keep them. Our turnover is close to 0 right now. We really don't have anybody who joins our team that doesn't stay on. And I tell everybody from the very beginning, if this is a short-term position for 6 to 12 months, this is not going to be a good fit. I want people who are here for the long haul. And what's before I go over the onboarding process, there's 12 questions that I ask during the interview process. And I'm not going to go through all of them now unless you guys want me to just read them. I'm happy to do that. But there's a lot of red flags that get exposed during those 12 questions that we ask. But once they're onboarded, we usually have the new hire come in at 10 o'clock. This is a couple of hours after the team has come in, settled in. I remind everybody that we have a new person starting. I want the first day to be a really positive experience for the new hire. I want them to come in, and I want the team members to come up, introduce themselves. And the feedback is always, wow, you guys are so friendly. I've never been in a place where there's so many people coming up and introducing themselves. And what we do at that point is we have them go through a 5-day onboarding plan. First couple of days, they watch our insurance sales lab training videos. They learn some key insurance terms. But starting day 3 is when we have a team lead sit side by side with them, and they go through the quoting process. In the past, in the first year, we would say, Dave, here's how you quote an auto and home policy. Here's 5 leads. Take your time, prepare the quotes, and come find me once you're done. We don't do that anymore.
And that's what everybody did, right?
Yeah, it would take a whole day for them to prepare the quotes. Now,
I think a big problem of that too is like when they're going out there and you're kind of throwing them to the fire, so to speak, people would think, well, that's good. They're going to learn to swim. But what really is happening there is they're practicing imperfect action on there, because nobody's going to be perfect on those first sales calls when they're in there. So what I've always found, probably just like what you're doing there, is, get them in batting practice first and really get those talk paths down. So now when they're in a real world scenario, one, they're going to have the confidence, they're going to have the competence, but then they're practicing perfect practice rather than just trying to survive through the sales call, so to speak. And then they're building imperfect habits along the way.
Exactly right. Exactly right. We want from the very beginning for them to do things the right way. And we don't leave their side. The team lead does not leave their side until they close a couple of deals. And we expect that they close a deal in their first couple of days. I mean, why wouldn't they? If the team lead is listening to the conversation and they hear what the prospect is saying, they can take over the computer and help them close the deal. So it is imperative that the new hire gets those initial wins, gets a couple of deals in their first couple of days. And we don't have a gradual expectation of, okay, in 3 months, we want you closing a deal a day. No, we want you closing a deal a day in your first full month. So the moment you get on the phone, as long as you do the 3 fundamentals, 4 new conversations, you use the script, and you do your follow-ups for 5 days with your quoted leads, you should be closing a deal a day. You don't need a pipeline to close a deal a day. Everybody talks about some pipeline. You don't need a pipeline to close a deal a day. Just with the 4 new conversations that you have, using the script, doing the follow-ups, you'll start closing a deal a day within your first week. And with everybody that we've hired over the last year, everybody's done over $40,000 in premium in the first month. And the goal is to continue on with that streak. We have a new person who's on. He's done $32,000 this month. Our folio ends next week. So we'll see if he crosses the 40K mark. And he's the first person in a long time that we've brought on without sales experience. And I can see the difference between having somebody with experience versus no experience. But that's our onboarding process for new sales hires.
No, absolutely. Love that. Love that. And then, on the topic of Ricochet that you're talking about too, where you're bringing in those new team members, put them in the Ricochet, and it was a game changer. I think you're going to really love some of the features coming out down the pipe that we're going to have on that, where we're going to have automated AI role play, where they'll actually be able to role play with a trained AI agent that literally sounds just like an insurance consumer, that'll be able to dialogue back and forth, and some other cool AI features potentially coming down the pipe too, where you'll literally be able to live on a scale score, see almost a scorecard of what they're doing right, what they're doing wrong on the call, so they can course correct the behavior in real time. I'd be curious on the Ricochet side, how else is that really, implementing that CRM tool? How else is that really, I guess, change the game from how you were operating before inside of your operation?
Yeah, so we use Ricochet for the phone capabilities. We use a different CRM just because of how we do things in our agency. But there's 2 things that we found that Ricochet has that no other phone system has. First is that the Shark Tank lead distribution. So it's the opposite of round robin. We've already talked about that. But the second component is we have our in-house SDRs, sales development representatives, where they make a few hundred calls and a few hundred calls a day, and they do live transfers to our sales agents. And we have 5 SDRs who are doing that full time. And what Ricochet allows us to do that we haven't found in another phone system is that if I'm an SDR and I'm talking to Andy as my prospect, I don't need to put Andy on hold to do a transfer to Dave. So Dave can join the call, and then I can do a warm introduction, and Andy never even knows that Dave joined the call. And that warm introduction, without putting the prospect on pause, allows us to have more of these transfers. Our average SDR can do 18 transfers per day. And if we had to put prospects on hold to do a transfer to someone on the team, the number of transfers that we would have per day from an SDR would be substantially lower than 18.
So you basically got, you got your SDR there. They're making a dial. They're getting them warmed up on the phone to get over to the sales agent, but they're already on the line, ready to go and take over that quote.
Yep, exactly right. All they're doing is confirming the address, date of birth, their name. And while they're confirming that basic information, they're already letting the sales team know that we have a lead on the line, and the sales agent joins that call.
Love that. Love that. Now, when you get somebody to come in your operation and, hey, maybe they interviewed very well, you're getting them through the onboarding process. At what point, if they're maybe not meeting expectations, are you having to make a decision if they're going to be a good fit for your team?
Yeah. So when we bring people on, we make our expectations very clear that at the very least, for you to pay for your seats, for you to not cost the organization money, you have to sell 40,000 in premium. So that's the bare minimum. That's our primary goal. Now, the second,
how long do they have a ramp to get to that?
In the first full month, they should do 40,000 in premium. So if they don't do that, our secondary goal is they ought to have 80 new conversations. Yep. So 80 conversations or 4 a day. If they fail to meet 40,000 in premium, but they did the 80 conversations, that's okay, because we can fix their close rates. If they're having 80 conversations and they're not closing 40,000 in premium, it's a close rate issue. And that's an easy thing that we can fix. And I can tell you how we do that here in a second. But when the producer doesn't do 40,000 in premium, their primary goal, and they don't do 80 conversations, which is their secondary goal, then they're not hustling. They're not doing the activity that we're asking them to do. That's when we put them on a performance improvement plan. They have 1 month to prove themselves. If they don't do that, then they're let go. Now, as far as how we improve the close rate, I'll give you an example of a producer last month. It wasn't even a full month that he was on the team, but he had over 80 conversations. He had 104 for the month. So he killed it overall. With new conversations. But his problem in the first half of the month was that his close rate was 7%. Only 7% of the people that he got past 10 minutes, he was able to close. Yep. And in listening to his calls, we found 2 things. One is that he was spending way too much time on people who were not eligible. We have a lot of restrictions where if someone has a certain amount of claims, we can't help them. And a lot of times in the past, we wouldn't need to go and check to see if that was the case. But now we have to check in the first few minutes of the call, how many claims have they had? And if they've had too many claims, we should wrap up that call pretty quick. We shouldn't spend too much time. We should talk about auto. We should bring up life insurance and then wrap up the call. Whereas this producer would spend 30 minutes, 40 minutes on the phone and then only to realize that he can't help them. So that was the first thing that we fixed. That increased his close rate. Second thing is every day, we would look at the conversations that you had the previous day that were over 10 minutes. And we would start listening from the moment that you presented the price. So the moment you started getting into the cost presentation and asking for the sale, we only listen from that point to the end of the call. And we compare what the producer said to our script. Did you use our closing objections workflow during that part of the call? And if the answer is no, which a lot of times if you have a close rate issue, you're not using our closing objections workflow, then that's the first thing that you fix. And when we listen to a few calls, day 1, day 2, usually it's the first thing the producer fixes is their ability to go through our closing objections workflow, use our cost presentation and asking for the sales script. Once we do that for a few days and that's fixed, then we start listening earlier in the call, the way that they build value, the way they multi-line. So this whole turnaround usually takes 5 to 7 business days. And you can take someone like what we had last month, a producer who had a 7% close rate in the first half of the month. He jumped to 30% close rate in the second half of the month. So his blended average was 14% for the entire month. So that's what we do with our producers who are not on track to hitting their goal. So you asked me, how much time do we give them? Well, we check their fundamentals twice a day. And if somebody's falling behind, we can course correct really quickly. But usually halfway through the month, if somebody's way behind, those are some of the actions that we take in listening to calls and fixing their conversations that way. And shoot, if they don't want to have more new conversations, they don't want to use our script, then this is not the agency for them. There's plenty of other agencies that they could work for.
No, I love that. I love that. And I love that, you're having those multiple checkpoints during the day. I'm a firm believer in that. Kind of what we'll do is, we treat the day like a football game and then look at it like, hey, there's four quarters in the day. So every 2 hours, if we know what the metrics, whatever metric or KPI that you're measuring over the course of that day, essentially dividing by 4 and then doing the math like, okay, first quarter is over. Where do we stand? And now if we're on a trajectory to substantially fall short to those KPIs, well, exactly to your point, I think you can get right in and have a conversation and figure out, hey, what's getting in the way for you today? Mm-hmm. And then you can course correct those behaviors like immediately, where typically it's the end of the day, they're so far behind. And then what they're doing is they're just going after quantity versus quality at that point, trying to catch up. And then it leads to an unsuccessful sales day. History repeats itself. It's an unsuccessful week. And then before they know it, they fall short for the entire month. But I think there's really something to be said because, I've heard it from you. That's what we do. A lot of, individuals that are having those multiple touch points throughout the day and staying highly engaged like that, tend to have the most consistent results across their operation.
Yeah. And it also gives an opportunity to the sales agent to brag about their moment that they had that morning or that afternoon. How often does it happen that someone in the sales team or service team does something spectacular and no one hears about it, no one knows about it? Whereas when we do our morning huddles and midday recaps, when we share our wins, that gives the team an opportunity to talk about what they just did. And if someone is not wanting to share their win, a team lead will jump in and say, hey, Andy just had this moment. Let me tell everybody about what he did. Prospect said this is what he did. And here was the outcome. And that highlights the individual's performance. And it just makes them that much more motivated to come back and do it again in the second half of the day. So it's really important for agents to have these checkpoints in the beginning of the day, middle of the day, not purely for accountability purposes, but to celebrate wins and highlight wins as well.
No, I love that. I love that. And I'd like to pivot for a minute and go into, something I think that's, a hot topic out there, especially with a lot of insurance operations that are facing so much turbulence. It seems like, with certain carriers, there's a lot of agents. They look one day and then the next day the game's change, right? And you got to be, I think, great agents got to be nimble. You got to be able to adapt to change, and especially how you go to market. So I'd be curious what your top marketing strategies are inside of your operation. So when you have that, you got the great culture, you got the great sales team, you have all the infrastructure that you do, but you got to add fuel to the engine of the NASCAR, so to speak. Mm-hmm. What are maybe those top 3-4 lead sources that are really driving the engine behind the scenes inside of your operation?
Most of our business comes from 2 sources: internet leads and referrals. And the goal for every producer is, after they've been with us for over a year, they really should be working purely off of referrals if they go about it the right way. But here's how we approach this. Initially, we buy internet leads for our producers. When a deal is closed, what we have in our closing script is that we ask for a referral. We recently changed it to where we're not asking for a referral, we ask for introduction. So, David, who do you know that you can introduce to me so we can help them the same way that we helped you? And we have an exact script for that. And when we ask for introductions, there's more immediacy to that versus a referral is more passive. So a lot of times people think that that's what it takes to get referrals. That is not what produces actual referrals coming in. What we do in our agency is we front gift cards to people before they even give us a referral. So I'll say, David, since you have your friend Andy who's going to give us a call, let me give you that gift card now. I'll send it to your email. Can you confirm that the gift card came through? It's an electronic gift card. We use tremendous.com. Oh, yep, the gift card came through. Now that I've given you a gift card in advance, now you feel like you owe me something.
Yeah,
So
there's that law of reciprocity.
exactly. So we give the gift card in advance, we pay in advance. And then what we do with our closed sales is 2 days after the sale is closed, there's an automatic reminder that goes into the schedule of the sales agent where I have to call you and say, hey, David, this is Vlad with XYZ Insurance. How you doing? Good. And then I have two things that I always follow up on as a sales agent. One is the documents that you're supposed to sign to make sure no discounts get removed. I confirm that those get signed. And I also remind you of your onboarding meeting that you're going to have with our onboarding specialist. Or if the onboarding already occurred, I ask how that went. So one is this helps reduce service work for our service team is by starting the conversation with that. And then I go into, David, you mentioned that your friend Andy was going to give us a call. You were going to introduce me to Andy. Have you been able to talk to him? No, you haven't. No problem. I just resent you my contact information. Can you check your text to see if that went through? And what we do is we send a text message with just a basic email signature, name, company name, email, phone number. And what you would do as the client then is just copy that message and paste it, send it to your buddy Andy. And by us asking that second time for an introduction and saying, hey, did that gift card that we sent you, did that work for you? That second ask is usually what prompts people to go and introduce somebody to us. So it's two calls. Now, in the past, we asked our team members, we would say, all right, sales producers, once you close a sale, call your new clients 2 days later. But that wouldn't happen because what's the incentive there? Now what we have is we have a commission structure where for them to hit the top few tiers of commission, they need to be they need to have called all of their clients 2 days after they close them. And we have an inspection process where it's very clear, here's all the sales that you made and whether or not you called them 2 days later. If you closed 50 households and one of them you didn't contact because you didn't want to for whatever reason, you don't get your top tier commission. So for you to get your top tier commission, you have to call your clients that you closed 2 days ago. And by having that be part of the compensation plan, now team members are calling, they're getting those referrals in. And what we're seeing more and more of is inbound calls, inbound text messages, people asking for us to give them a quote that are not internet leads. So the goal is for us to not rely as much on internet leads moving forward. And the other thing we do is whenever we talk to somebody who's closing on a home, we always ask for the lender's information. And then when we talk to the lender, hey, we're working with a mutual client, Andy, he's closing in his home on the 10th of July. Just wanted to make sure that you got the EOI, the replacement cost estimator. Did that come to your email? Okay, awesome. Hey, we're also going to send you a gift package to your office. We do this to all of our lenders. Can you confirm your address? It's boom, boom, boom. We confirm the address. And then we send them a little mug like this. It has our logo. We put some candy inside, handwritten card, just as a token of appreciation for working with the mutual clients. And without even asking for a referral, we've already done something that no other insurance agent likely has done for them, is we've given them a gift of some sort. And then we ask for that. And we don't want to exclusively rely on lender referrals because, as you know, with interest rates going up and down, you can have a climate like happened the last.
It's on today, and then it's totally off tomorrow.
Yes, we want that to be supplemental to what we do. So that's how we grow our businesses: internet leads, referrals, and from clients, and then referrals from lenders.
No, that's great. And on the referral side, since you've implemented that, what would you say the average number of referrals on a monthly basis each producer is churning out for you?
It's hard to say the average per producer, but what I can say is that for every 4-ish people that we close, we get at least one strong inbound referral. And that's by doing the 2-day follow-up. And those people that send a referral, we call them back and say, hey, just got a call from your brother. We were able to help him with insurance. Who else do you know that we can help the same way? Because if they've been trained to send us one referral, it's much easier to get the second and third referral from them than it is to, call somebody again who will never send me a referral. It's the 80-20 rule. where likely 80% of your referrals will come from 20% of your sources. So once we get a client to send us a referral, we really count on them to send us that second and third referral. But generally speaking, for every 4 clients that we close, we want to have one of those clients send us a referral. And that's what we're seeing.
No, I love that. And I don't think people realize, how much that can really move the needle too. Because really, so you kind of look at it like this: birds of a feather flock together. If you have like a perfect ideal customer and they're bringing over multiple items, like you got, home, auto, toys, life, whatever that may be. Well, they're likely not riding those toys alone. They're riding them with somebody else, and their friends are going to be like similar people. So when you're getting a referral from one of your best customers there, that close rate is going to be substantially higher than, any internet lead or anything else out there, because you're almost more times than not getting that mirror clone of your next best customer. We actually did that on our team hired side, on the service side. Mm-hmm. So, we looked at it as like, how do we really want to scale team hired? Is like, we didn't know of any recruiting companies that are out there that were known for best in class customer service. So we're like, you know what, we're going to make it all about that and just obsess over the customer experience and try to over deliver for everybody. And as a matter of fact, 50% of the compensation on our service team is going to be all derived off of that customer experience. And we came up with a very similar thing to you, where they have something called success points. So they're not getting a very substantial piece of their paycheck unless they're hitting those success points every customer. And then every customer, they have to get, before they close them out for the month, like 2 to 3 success points per customer. And like, what does that look like? One of the big ones is getting a referral for them, which we really push with them, getting a video testimonial, maybe a Google review, Better Business Bureau review, or a social media shout out that now all of a sudden we turn our customer into an amplifier. But before we do that, we ask them, hey, how would you rate this level of service that you've had so far with this? 1 out of 5 star. Our goal is always to get a 5 star. And, they're not allowed to close out that customer until they get a 4 or 5 star. Once they do that, then they just basically tell the customer, like, hey, you know what, if, since I did a good job for you, that's why I asked you this question, because I would never ask you this follow-up question unless I did a great job and over-delivered for you. This is a big part of my compensation plan. I literally don't get recognized for my hard work unless I get these success factors, because it's the only barometer we have to make sure that no customer is left behind. So once they understand the logic behind it, and then they understand, hey, this person that was like literally out there killing for me, they got the job done, they did the right thing, and they did a good experience. Well, how could you not give that person a referral at that point? How could you not get a video testimonial at that point? How could you not get a Google review? And then we just started taking all of our customers and turning them into those brand ambassadors that were going out there and becoming bug lights. And then all of a sudden, before you know it, every month those bug lights are growing for the number of people that are out there having good experiences with your service, that are sending you more people like that. And, I think that's how you create a movement behind a brand. That led to us having over 4,000 online positive reviews. I think we got 2,000 positive Google reviews, 700 A+ rating on the Better Business Bureau. And then, how easy is it now, Andy, when you got to go, well, why should I do business with you? Well, I'll tell you what, I'll put my money in my mouth and get you a steak dinner if you can find me another recruitment company that's got over 4,000 online reviews online.
Yeah, that's so powerful. And people are far more likely, consumers, I think, to do it as a favor to you more so than to get something out of the deal themselves. So when you say my compensation plan is contingent upon you leaving a review or anything of that sort, people are far more likely to take the extra step and leave a review if I can help you that way. If it's I'll give you a $10 gift card if you send me a referral. Well, that's something for me. I don't really care about the $10 gift card, but if you say a big part of my compensation plan is how many referrals I can get per month, that is a different ask. I would take the time to find a referral. I love that.
No, absolutely. Absolutely.
And how much of the pay is contingent upon the extra, points that you guys score, and how many points do they need to have for the month for them to max out their compensation structure?
Well, I mean, they could literally go as high as almost doubling their pay from where their base pay is by getting that. So we did, weight it relatively heavy so they can get some pretty sizable bonuses when they're coming in there and really, really delivering for the team. And it's really across the board. So the things that we're measuring are, are you getting the Google review, Better Business Bureau review? Are you getting video testimonial from them? Maybe an introduction to an FSL that has a group of agents that we could serve, like those different, any different point that's, hey, they had to give a good experience in order for them to do that. But we know they're all levers that are going to strengthen the brand, drive new business to the band, and get us new customers at the end of the day. So we're happy to pay that. And then that kind of becomes our marketing engine there by, rewarding our team members for doing all the right things.
I love that. Yeah, that's something that I'm spending a lot more time thinking about is, okay, there's a traditional ways to grow of internet leads, asking for referrals, but there has to be a better way for us to get more out of the clients that we're already talking to. And if we could take that number from 10, 20% of our clients sending us referrals and get it to 50% or beyond, that's doable. We're not ever going to expect 100% of our clients to do something for us, but at least 50%, I feel like that's a doable number. And yeah, those are some good ideas. I wrote them down. Thank you for that.
So, and then the compounded effect of that too, you keep doing it. And then I think what a lot of times people will do too is look at a referral source as like a one-time thing. Well, no, that's an opportunity to build a long-term sustainable relationship. Yeah. And what you're going to have out of that relationship is what you're going to have deeper retention. When they got to go have a service again, they're going to come back to you as long as you're staying in touch with them, month to month to month. It's like, hey, who do you know that I should know that I can help maybe this month? And I'd love to get you some referral credits to your account. It mean the world to me. How many times like Andy's reached out and be like, hey, we're about to break a month sales record. I was wondering if you could help me get this done. Or I'm in the middle of a contest trying to win this contest. I was wondering if you could help me get this done. And what you're doing is you're also speaking their language at the same time, at least to a business owner, because it's like, well, I'm trying to get my team to do this. And I see you're doing this and this is pretty impressive. Well, of course I want to help you get your goal done. And they're going to dig deep. But it's all in what I find is the way you frame the conversation. If you just call somebody up and say, hey, you got any referrals for me? Well, that's going to fall pretty flat. But if there's a strong why behind it, and then you have a strong relationship, and then, hey, to sweeten the pot, there's a little bit something in it for you too. Mm-hmm. Well, that's like what we call a win-win-win across the board. And like, you can just really build a great network, where at some point where you're not having to rely on, having to go out as hunting as much because it's just coming in.
Yeah. This gave me an idea to have all of our sales agents reach out to everybody they wrote in the last 1, 2, 3 months and say, hey, we're running a contest for the next week. Whoever can get the most referrals will win XYZ. Can you help me with this? I understand if you can't, but it would mean the world to me if you can do an introduction with anybody you know. You send them my contact information. This is my contact information. I mean, that can't fail. I mean, even
100%. Or even, a lot of people are on social media too, like do the same thing, what you're saying there with the email that you copy and paste, but it's like a canned script for social media. Hey, if you wouldn't mind, if you're comfortable enough with this, if you're on social media, post this out. Mm-hmm. And then just, forward them all over to me. I'd love to get you some, some extra gift cards, and it would mean the world to me.
Yeah. And with the business that we're in, which is the retention business, every way that I can increase the probability of somebody staying with me, I want to do that strategy. It's not just about maintaining consistent rates. I know with my dad, he didn't want to leave his agent to be with me because of the number of referrals he sent to that agent.
Yep.
When I asked him for my dad's business, he said, well, I sent this guy so many referrals. How am I going to leave him now? And I thought, wow, that's so interesting that he's not comfortable leaving because of the number of referrals he sent. So if somebody leaves you a review, somebody sends you a referral, those are additional ways to keep clients around for longer.
No, absolutely. And I'd like to hit on quick as we're climbing towards the end here too, is because I know you just have like a game-changing culture. And when we really started focusing on culture inside of our business and our businesses now, that was the biggest game changer for us. And for me, it was like a tipping point. I was at a conference one time and we hit a wall, we hit a plateau, and we're trying to figure out, hey, how do we get to the next level? And this guy got up on stage. It was at 10X, where Andy used to work for Grant Cardone. It was 10X Growth Con, I think the first one there. And the guy's name was JJ Watts, I believe. He was up on stage, ran 7 Honda dealerships, and they ironically ranked as the number 1 through 7 Honda dealerships in the world. And I thought that was pretty profound. And he was on stage and he attributed it to really one thing, was having non-compromising culture. One day he'd come in, things weren't going the way they wanted to do. People weren't acting the way they wanted them to act. And you realize, hey, my name's on the door. I'm the one that's running this ship. And I'm going to cast a picture of what that looks like. I'm going to involve the team and then come up with a set number of non-negotiables. And I know when we implemented that, we basically came back to our team like, hey, we're not going to let you guys go, but you got 60 days to get on board with this. And this is the why behind it that's going to allow our organization to really go to the next level. Because we have some great, good salespeople that we're allowing to be good salespeople. But, when it came to overall cultural behavior, they really lacked. And sometimes, we would let that slide in the earlier years of our agency just because they were producers. But then when when it finally got to the end of those 60 days, some of those people that were the good salespeople, they couldn't adapt, and we had to let some of the best people go. But then what we saw with the existing team that was there before is all the ships started to rise with the tide. Then it was like everybody got on board with the program, and then it just became such an infectious thing that everybody wanted to protect that culture, this high fun, high energy, high integrity culture where we're going out there and serving our customers. And I'd be curious, what does the culture look like inside of your operation that keeps it running like such a well-oiled machine, running at a high level of performance like it does?
Yeah, whenever I do my trainings to agency owners, we have agents fly in from across the country, generally about once a month. We do our agency operations boot camp. The whole day we spend going over 32 systems that we have in our agency. It's a checklist where Ricochet is 1, SDRs is 2. We have all of our items that we do in our agency that somebody could literally come back and plug in their agency and have a very similar agency to ours. One thing that I always say is that you can have all of these systems in your agency, but if you don't have the culture points in there, none of those systems will matter. And for us, our 7 cultures is what we hire based on. I mentioned that earlier. We vote our MVP every month based on who exemplified the core values. So our MVP used to be just core values, but now it's core values, work ethic, and results. So who exemplify that most? And then we let people go based on that as well. So real quick, our 7 core values. 1 is always be honest. The first day you lie to me on the job is your last day here. I say that during the interview, and we've followed through on that. One time, a person on our team said they scheduled an onboarding meeting with our onboarding team for our clients, and he didn't. I did a little bit of digging. Turns out, last 5 clients he sold, he didn't schedule an onboarding meeting, even though he said he did. He put a fake time in there. If he's lying with that, even though he's a good producer, what else could he be lying with? Could he be fabricating documents? Gone that first day. And it was really important to go out to the team and say, so-and-so no longer works here because of this. This is our first core value. We always need to be honest. And when the team sees that there's action behind these core values, then they understand that this is not just some writing on the wall. We have to live through it. When you show up for the morning huddle, if you had 3 conversations, not 4, don't say you had 4 conversations because that was your goal. Say what you actually did. And if you're lying with little stuff, you're going to lie with other stuff. That's the first one. Second one is follow through on your commitments. What you say you're going to do, follow through. Don't set these ambitious, crazy goals that you're not going to hit. We want you to set a goal that you're going to hit no matter what. And then you can say, my stretch goal is going to be X. So today I'm going to do 4 conversations. And if I'm able to do that before 5 o'clock, I'm going to go for my 5th. Awesome. Don't just say you're going to do 5 new conversations. And that also goes to our clients. If we tell our client, I'll get back to you before end of day, then even if you don't have the answer for them before end of day, send them an email and say, hey, I haven't forgotten about you. I'm still working on your accounts. I should have an answer for you. I'm hoping by tomorrow, but just wanted to let you know that I'm working in your accounts. I'll talk to you again tomorrow. An email like that takes 15 seconds to write is following through on your commitments. Now the client feels like, okay, these people I can trust because they follow through on what they commit to. The third one is bring solutions, not excuses. So if all we're hearing is reasons why you're not executing on the goals or whatever it is that you're not doing, we don't want to hear the excuses. We want to hear the solutions. The fourth one is we win when the team wins. So have team above self mentality. If Andy starts a conversation, spends 30 minutes with a prospect, but then Andy's out of the office tomorrow, and Dave, you get that call, you'll go and you'll close that deal. You'll spend an hour on the phone and you'll give all that credit to Andy because he would do the same back for you. And there's a lot of examples of us constantly where an SDR has 3 more transfers that they need to do before end of day for them to hit their goal. A few sales producers will stay after 5 to help the SDR get their transfers because we win when the team wins. The fifth one is be constructive, not destructive. So no negativity allowed. If somebody curses you out, or if you get a high rate or underwriting declines your application, you don't need to turn around and tell the world about it. No one really cares. Everybody has their own problems. If you want to complain about something, go complain to me, go complain to the team lead. Don't turn around and spew negativity to the people around you, because my common thing that I always go to with everybody is that what you just did there, imagine if everybody did that.
Oh, absolutely.
Every day. And that goes for everything. If we're all standing during a morning huddle, which we always stand, but one person is sitting, I'll ask them if something is happening with them. But Andy, if everybody was doing what you're doing right now, sitting, what kind of meeting would we have? If I see that Andy's checked out or he's yawning during the morning huddle, well, imagine if everybody was yawning and looked checked out during the morning huddle. What kind of environment would we have? So, so that's be constructive, not destructive. And then the sixth one is be 1% better every day. We read Atomic Habits twice as a book for a book club, so 2 years ago, and then again recently. Our entire team reads one book a month, and we gather every couple of weeks to discuss takeaways. So I usually send them the questions in advance of what we're going to be discussing. They send me an email or a Slack message with their answers, and then we meet and we discuss takeaways. And when I hire people, I tell them I want you to hit your personal, professional, financial goals, and you're not going to learn everything directly from me. We're going to bring in other ways that you can learn different information. And the books that we read are not all based on sales. In fact, most of them are not on sales. They're on personal finance. They're on a variety of different topics. So being 1% better every day also means to us as an organization is, even though we broke a company record, nobody in the history of our nearly 100-year company has written how much we wrote last month. We're not stopping here. We're going to go a little higher and a little higher. As an organization, we're always going to think 1% better. We don't need to be 50% better. We don't need to be 100% better every month, but incremental improvements over every single day will amass to massive improvement over time. And our seventh core value is always do your best. Andy's best is not going to be David's best. If Andy's the number one sales producer, but David, second month in the agency, absolutely worked his butt off, stayed past 5, came in before 8 o'clock. If he did his best, I'm going to appreciate David's work, which is in the middle of the pack, just as much as Andy's work if he's at the top of the pack, because he gave his best. And that's what we ask for, is that there's only going to be one number one, but we do expect that everybody gives their best. And by you exemplifying these core values in your time here and then also outside of here, this is how you become a better human. When you go to the military, you don't come out of the military usually the same person that you came into the military. They brainwash you to think, they program you to think a certain way. And I think that's what great organization.
Well, you're insisting on personal excellence out of them, and in every core area. And we used to do that even with, even under health, do different initiatives like how do you get better in every important core area of life. So I absolutely love that. A lot of very similar core values to us. So it's a testament that success leaves clues. And, this has been an absolute incredible conversation, so many different knowledge bombs. And as we're wrapping up here at the end, before we get into the final question, which is how people can follow you, how people can work with you, a question that I always love to ask is if Vlad is, he's here this week, but he's not here next week. And because we're all got limited time on this planet. And I think every one of us wants to leave a legacy behind. And I'd be curious, what are the things that really matter most to you in terms of the legacy that and the footprint that you want to leave behind, far when you're long and gone?
Yeah, I should probably think more about that. In my early 30s, I don't spend as much time thinking about like that far out. But what I remember, my wife sharing with me many years ago, she had a neighbor that was the nicest neighbor. Everybody loved him. He was an older guy, and he did not have a relationship with his kids. And his kids were grown up, and he regretted it so much. And he said, as you get married, this is right before my wife and I got married. He said, people often talk about quality time with your kids. He said, we did all the different Disney trips, Six Flag trips. We took vacations. I felt like by me doing one big trip every quarter, I'd be able to buy that quality time with my kids. But what I learned over the years is that quantity matters more than quality. So you have to spend a lot of time with your kids. It can't just be when you're on vacation. Isolate some pure hours every day where you just spend time with the kids. And now that I have a 6, a 5-year-old, and a 3-month-old, this is something I'm consciously thinking a lot more about is, okay, we have our business, but our business is half of my life. The other half of my life is my family. And I want to make sure that I don't prioritize the business over my family. And when I pass, I don't want my kids to ever feel like I prioritized the business over them. And the other part is with my business, I like giving more than taking something myself, where if I can pay myself more or I can give my team a 401k account, I'd rather do a 401k account. If I can increase my pay or pay for somebody's trip to go to Hawaii or do something they've never done before, I'd much rather do that. That gives me so much more satisfaction, is giving things to my team members as opposed to paying myself. And I hope I'm not doing it so that it comes back to help me in some way, but that's just something I enjoy doing. And hopefully that's something people share about me when I pass, is that Vlad put others ahead of himself. So those
I love that. I love that. Great answer. And I guess last but not least, I mean, there's so many people that are working with you around the country. And I've heard testimonies myself from people that I've talked to that it's changed the game inside of their operation. How do people follow you, and in what capacities can people that are listening work with you?
Yeah. So I have a training company called Insurance Sales Lab, and the website is insurancesaleslab.com. And really our mission at Insurance Sales Lab is to help insurance agencies run high producing and profitable agencies. I believe that both could be true at the same time. You can be high producing and profitable. And there's a right way to do that. And we teach that in our training platform. And it's not just personal lines P&C. We also have training for commercial. We have training for life insurance. And the best way to find me is by going to insurancesaleslab.com. Also on Facebook, Instagram, I just use my name, Vlad Cherchenko, or Insurance Sales Lab. That's how you can find me.
Well, I love it. Well, thank you so much for your time. I know your time's incredibly valuable, and the fact that you spent it with everybody here today means a lot. And I know those that are listening live, they got a ton of nuggets. But if you're listening live or you're listening to the rerun, make sure to show him some love down in the chat that are out there. Reach out to them if you're not where you want to be. And I think most of us aren't where we want to be. And I believe, everybody needs a coach in life. Everybody needs a mentor in life. This guy is doing it right. Seeing his operation, it's just incredibly impressive. And, reach out, and who knows, you never know you could be one connection away of changing the trajectory of your business and the trajectory of your life, with guys like this here. So thank you so much for coming on.
I appreciate you saying that. Thank you. Thank you both once again.
Thank you, bud.
Absolutely.
Yep. Take care.